Good morning. Running a bit late, not as bad as yesterday. So we have another lesson on our daily prayers. We're in Ashrei. We're up to a really important pasuk now, really important verse. We're up to the letter Tzadi, Tzadik. And today's lesson is called Righteous and Pious. So let's turn in Art School Siddur. I have the Nusach Svard here to page 72. And the verse says as follows. Tzadik Adonai b'chol derachav v'chasid b'chol ma'asav. This means that HaShem is a tzaddik. He is translated as righteous. Hashem is righteous in all of his ways, all his drachav, all his ways. V'chasid, they translate magnanimous, or we normally translate chasid as pious, in all of his deeds. So we need to explain now, very important concept, what is the difference between a tzaddik and a chassid? What does it mean to be righteous and to be pious? Now, in general, this has nothing to do with chassidish yid. They called chassidim, that's pious. That's not what it means. It's not because they have pious. That's not what it means. What's the difference of tzaddik and a chassid? A tzaddik, a righteous person, is someone who does the right thing. He acts correctly. He's righteous. He does the right thing. The verse tells us, Amech kulam tzadikim. The entire Jewish people are tzadikim. They're righteous. They all do the right thing. Now, is that true? Have you ever seen a Jew not do the right thing? It's quite common. In fact, we're taught that everybody sins. There's no such person who never does a sin. Well, we all make mistakes. We're human. So what does it mean? Amech kulam tzadikim. The entire Jewish people are righteous. We always do the right thing. It isn't true. The answer is, as the Chavetz Chaim explains, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, one of the great leaders of the Jewish people a few generations ago, he explains something really deep and important to appreciate the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. Hope this doesn't step on too many toes out there. But what we're taught in the Jewish soul, deep down, every single Jew, no matter how observant he is or not, it doesn't matter. Deep down, every Jew, his inner drive is to do the right thing. There's no such thing as a Jew. You push comes to shove, he won't agree to do the right thing. They say that's what they say in Germany, in Auschwitz, every single Jew in death camps, when he came to Shema Yisrael, every single Jew, we are taught, even a sinner, when it comes down to it, he'll bring the sacrifice, he'll give it. There's many examples in Jewish law where we see that every Jew, deep down, his desire is to do the right thing. Things are blocking us. We all have evil inclinations. We all have it in our head and our emotions and our drives. We have things blocking us. But deep down, when we get to the core, everyone is righteous. Anyway, the word righteous means to be right. And when we say Hashem is a tzaddik, he is righteous. Everything he's doing is right. As we know, there's such a thing as tziduk hadin, at a time of death. We need to declare that whatever happened, whatever judgment happened, it was correct. Hashem is a tzaddik. He doesn't do things that are wrong. Everything is right. Everything is correct. Everything Hashem does is correct. He's righteous. That's tzaddik Hashem b'chol drachav. It's one of the hardest times of my life when my father passed away. I had to do tziduk hadin. That's what you need to do. You need to make a blessing that what Hashem did was correct. And we are taught that when we make that blessing, we need to do it with joy. I felt terrible. I had a whole room of people who came to show their respect to my father. And they're waiting for me. What could I do? I didn't have joy. A really happy guy, right? How are you supposed to say a blessing with joy? That Hashem's judgment is correct. So it took me like 5-10 minutes, finally. Came to the inner joy. Outwardly, I was crying my head off. but there's an inner joy, inner recognition that Hashem's judgment is correct. Now, in this verse, it doesn't say the chassid, the level of chassid is a piety. That's what taught means to do lifnim mishurasadim, to go the extra mile, to go extreme, to be. It comes from the word chesed, of kindness, to be kind, to go more than what you have to do. This is what you have to do. What's the right thing to do? That's what a tzaddik does. And a chassid is pious, what's the word? Magnanimous. He does more than what you have to do. So what says here in the verse is that Hashem's ways are righteous. They're not pious, they're not magnanimous, they're not always kind. There's many of God's ways in the world that are not kind. There's judgment, there's difficulty, there's problems. They're not kind. So we don't say Chassid Hashem b'chol drachav. That is not true. Hashem is not magnanimous in all of his ways. They're not. We have ways that are the opposite of kindness. Is Hashem has an attribute of judgment, of strength, of gvura, of din, things that are not kind. So that's why it doesn't say Hashem is a chassid with all of his drachim, all of his ways. The ways of God are not always kind. There are ways of judgment, of din, but they're always correct. Tzaddik Hashem, Hashem's ways are righteous. In all of his ways, it's the right thing. Sometimes they're pleasant, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're kind, sometimes they're, put your foot down. This is not right. This has to stop. Remember, I spoke about this in Florida. The rabbi was away that Shabbos when the Pittsburgh massacre. Hashem should have mercy on all the families. So we spoke about this concept, how sometimes we have to have judgment. We can't always be kind. As Hashem is not always kind, his ways, his drachim, are always correct, but we're not always kind. For example, that was what we just read in the Torah that week, when what happened in Pittsburgh. We read in the Torah how God told Abraham to send his son out of his house, to send Yishmael out of the house. He said, I can't do that. Which loving, kind father could send their son out of their house? But God said, listen to Sarah. That's the purpose of a wife. One of the purposes. A Jewish wife is to complement her husband, whatever attributes he needs strengthening with to come together. Abraham was the pillar of kindness. He couldn't do it. He needed his wife to put him straight. My dear, he has to leave the house. That was the right thing to do. Sometimes you have to put your foot down and be strong, use judgment, strength. And he had to leave the house for his own sake, for Isaac's sake, for the success of the Jewish people. It had to happen. Now it's the attribute of strength, of gvura. And that's the ways of Hashem. It's always the right thing to do. It's always correct. But it's not always kind. It's not always pious. It's not always magnanimous. Sometimes it seems cruel. I'm sure when Yishmael was leaving, he said, how could you do this to me? This is cruel. As many of us crying, fetch, Hashem, how could you do this? And it does seem cruel, but it's always the correct thing. We have to recognize that. What we said then by Pittsburgh, I believe this is true. I'll say it again, that there's a problem in America, a wonderful country. I love America. And there's a freedom of this and freedom of that, and there's such kindness, but they need to make a line. This is a lesson we learned the hard way. Let's make a line. You have to make a line. I don't know. I'm sure that Hashem's righteous and the people in Pittsburgh, whatever, I don't know the calculations. I don't know them. But I do know this, that America, it should not be tolerated. Where freedom of everything, there cannot be freedom of hate groups. You can't have freedom of those who don't want freedom. No, we're free to everybody who's along the lines of being a normal, civilized person. If your idea of civilization is hate and destruction, so then we can't allow that freedom. You have to draw a line. This line has not been drawn yet in this country. There cannot be free speech of hate groups. That can't be. That can't be. That's a contradiction. And that's this quality of gvura, of din, where we're not chassid, we're not kind, we're not pious, we're not magnanimous with evil people. They have to draw a line until they'll learn the lesson. Yishmael was sent away. He learned his lesson, and he came back, and he was accepted back. He repented. He became a wonderful person. He needed to go to this rehab facility to get out this whatever it was his problems were. And that's any hate groups. They have to be stopped. They have to be. You want to change, you're welcome back. But the way you are now, you can't exist. And I don't know the people in Pittsburgh, but the concept, you see the beauty of Hashem's attribute. I don't know. I know Pittsburgh has always been the city of steel. Steel is the example of this quality of strength, of gvura. And that's what we spoke about then. So that's what this verse is telling us, is that Hashem's ways, his ways are always righteous. They're not always pious. They're not always chesed. Now here is an amazing concept. Listen to this. It says chassid, Hashem is pious, magnanimous with what? With all of his mice, all of his deeds. And that blows your mind. What? What do you mean? We just got finished speaking for 11 minutes how Hashem's ways are not always kind and magnanimous. And here it says all of his deeds are magnanimous. What do you mean by that? So if you'll take a look at the bottom of our Art Scroll Siddur, it brings something really incredible. It's on page 73 on the right-hand column. Tzaddik v'chassid, righteous and magnanimous. God's ways are just and righteous means that he judges people only according to their deeds. All of his ways are according to the deeds, and everything is done the right way. Listen to this. Nevertheless, even when justice calls for grievous punishment, he, Hashem, is magnanimous in softening the blow, for he is merciful. This is from the Vilna Gaon. Now, if you hear the incredible beauty in this, we're talking even at the time of darkness, of difficulty, of pain and suffering. And this, you got to open your eyes. This is the letter tzaddik. This is after we have ayin. You'll be able to see, and you pay, you speak, and we work on ourselves. This is a high level. We're at the tzaddik. Tzaddik stands for, the word tzaddik is righteous. This righteousness. When you get to this level, you'll be able to see that in everything Hashem does, even the actions of strength, which seems to be not pious, they're hard, painful. In them themselves, there are deeds in the ways that are not righteous, are not pious, are not kind. They're strong and hurtful. But in them themselves, in the deeds, if you open your eyes and open your mouth and be able to feel and to see, you'll see magnanimous there. You see there's a kindness within there. I've had this myself, my personal life, everyone. Open your eyes and you'll see that there's purposeful. The pain is not, this is Christian theology, I don't know. The pain is not, God, oh, you didn't listen to me, you're going to get it, eternal damnation, you're going to suffer. It's not like that. The pain and suffering is purposeful. And during the pain and suffering, as any loving parent, you'll see that what they call a silver lining. It's more than a silver lining. As the Gra says, he's magnanimous and softening the blow. The blow is given not more, not less. It's very painful, but it's exactly what you need, and Hashem is kind to soften the blow. As an example, I can't go through history. It's too sensitive. But I'll give you an example of Jewish law, where we see how Hashem says to do this. When a person has to be death, there is capital punishment in the Torah. It's very rare. Usually Hashem runs this world. Jewish people, we have to do it. But sometimes we need to do something to get the evil out of the Jewish people. And we carry out capital punishment. We have to be the ones to actually do it. So Hashem gives us guidelines. How do we do it? How do we carry out this ultimate din, judgment of killing a person? How do we do it? And it blows your mind to know the amount of laws to make the death as comfortable and beautiful and easy as possible. We learn this from the verse. Everybody knows that? Everyone knows that verse? Love your, I don't know why they translate re'echa as neighbor. Re'echa is not a neighbor. That's another mistaken translation, I'm sorry. Even Jews translate it. I don't know what's wrong with everybody. A re'echa is not a neighbor. It's a friend, an acquaintance. You have to love your friends and acquaintances as yourself, kamocha, like yourself. And we are taught, you know what this means? That when we kill our friend, our neighbor, our acquaintance, we have to borrow lo misayaf. We have to choose for him a good death. It shouldn't be too painful. And this is in Jewish law, that before they put the person to death, whatever the death, it's an exact death. It's the best, the perfect thing that he needs. And when we do it, we first give him drugs. He shouldn't feel it so much. We give him alcohol. We give him wine to drink. By the way, that's one of the reasons we say, Jewish people, when we drink a glass of wine or alcohol, we say, l'chaim. You know why we say l'chaim? This is one of the reasons brought. Is because when we kill somebody, we also give them alcohol. So they shouldn't feel the death. So when we're drinking alcohol, we say, this is not because no one getting killed over here. It should be for life. This alcohol should bring us to life. But that is the Jewish law. When we put someone to death, they shouldn't feel it so much. So we give them drugs, we give them alcohol, and we do the perfect way to kill that's necessary for him. The painless as possible. I know there's been discussions for millennia about slaughtering animals. I mean, God created this world, and he told us the best way to kill an animal. I don't know who thinks they're no more than God, but it is the best way. That's not cruel. It's the best way to kill. I've seen it many times. That's how we kill an animal. The Torah is all merciful. The entire Torah, all the laws are guidelines of compassion and mercy, even when we're carrying out judgment. We're killing animal or people. We do it with magnanimous. And that's an incredible concept here. The ways of HaShem, let's just appreciate this. The ways of HaShem are righteous. They're not pious. They're not magnanimous. No. Some of the ways, HaShem has attributes of judgment. You can't say an act of killing, of bringing the child into detox and he's suffering. That was a attribute of, I didn't act kind at all. There's no smiles going on. There's crying and there's pain. So the way is a way, the means are through painful ways. That's not kind. But in the painful ways, there are kind deeds all the time, because it's not vengeful, it's not hurtful, it's purposeful, it's loving, with loving kindness throughout the judgment. It's chasidhu. It's amazing. B'chol ma'asav, even in the judgment. In the judgment, besides that it's for a purpose of bringing good, but even in that itself, he's taken care of. You know, God made an open miracle for Ishmael. Unbelievable. Sent him out of the house, and then it came out water out of nowhere. God made miracles because he's taking care of him in his rehab, in his detox, in his treatment he had to go through. And anybody, if you'll just open your eyes. I remember one of the things I had when I had cancer. So I was in the hospital in the beginning for 4 days straight. They did this chemotherapy to stop the growth. And I shouldn't speak like this, but it was really one of the greatest experiences of my life. Nobody should ever have it, but because I had in my room 24 hours. I had friends and family with me. And I told everybody, you know, I don't know why we have to wait for sickness to do this. It's such a wonderful thing. We should take turns. Everyone take a week out of the year where all family and friends come to spend time with you. It was really amazing. I had every second of the day, I made instead there shouldn't be too many people, I made a cycle. They came one after the other, and I always had somebody there. Put someone in charge of making the cycle. It wasn't on my head. And there was always people there. And it was really enjoyable. I did laughter therapy. Everyone had to tell me jokes, and we enjoyed ourselves. In the same room where I was, there was he passed away. It was a delegate in the UN from an African country. I still in contact with his brother, really sweet man. And he had no visitors. His wife was there, and his brother, but he didn't, usually he was alone. So I made sure everyone who came to me said hello to him, But look at the Jewish people, how much we care about each other. So in the judgment itself, if we'll just open our eyes, we could see that in these ways of righteousness, not piety, not kindness, nobody's going to say that cancer treatment is kindness. It's for the purpose of bringing kindness, but it itself is not a way of chesed. It's a way of pain, hurtful. But within that, it's for the purpose of bringing chesed, to fix so we can come out and be a higher level. And during the treatment itself, if you open your eyes, you'll see tremendous chesed from HaShem. So that's this verse of Tzaddik. Oh, and let me just point out that both Pei and Tzaddik, yesterday's lesson was a Pei and Pei Tzaddik, these also have two ways to write it. And this was taught, it's in Tractate Shabbos, because shall take a look. It goes to the whole Aleph Beis, on page Kuf Dalet Amud Aleph, it's 104a. And it tells us, let's go back to the Pei 1 second. The Pei, the mouth, the Pei there's two ways to write it. One is open and one is closed. And that's also, like we said by the Mem, there's a Maimer Pasuk, sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's closed. Also the mouth. Sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed. It is extremely important to know what to speak and when to speak. That's on the Pei, to teach you this lesson. Sometimes it's our job to know what not to speak. Chavetz Chaim writes this on, it's also this week's parsha. The high priest, the Kohen Gadol, he wore on his clothes, he wore bells, that there should be noise, everyone should know when he's coming. From this we learn Jewish law, that you knock before you walk into a room. You don't just walk into a room. People aren't prepared. First you knock, people should know you're coming. But also, on his clothes, besides for the bells, there were these reminding, these pomegranates, that they didn't make noise. And the Chavetz Chaim tells us that equally important is the recognition that we don't always make noise. You have to know, sometimes you talk, and sometimes you have to know when not to talk. It could be right now, I need to stop the lesson. Talk too much. You have to know when not to talk. Sometimes you talk, sometimes you don't. You hold back, pass off some. Well, we're on now is Tzadi, and Tzadi is the same as by the Nun, that sometimes it's kafuf. You have a Tzadik, the letter Tzadik is sometimes written bent over, and sometimes it's zakuf, it's straight. The same thing that we said by the Nun, and the Talmud actually asked the question. It's the same thing we said by the Nun, sometimes to be bent over, sometimes to be straight. And we answer to add more, to add a higher level of being bent over. Bent more over, even more. And this is this lesson we mentioned, that the higher level you get, the higher you become in your level of Torah scholar or connection to HaShem, become a greater person, you have to become more and more humble. A true Jewish leader is more and more humble. As we know, Moses was the greatest Jewish leader, humblest of all men. And that's the sign of true greatness, is humility. On the Pei itself, on the Pei, Sasum and Pasuch, Rashi explains that sometimes you shouldn't be speaking. This is talking about the great Torah scholar. We're up to Pei, high level. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you hold back. And the tzaddik has to be bent over, a high level. And sometimes the tzaddik is straight. You have to stay straight. You can't be bent over, and that's also a very important lesson. Sometimes a righteous person has to tell a city. It's actually Jewish law. When you come to a city, this happened to me many times. They don't even respect you. They don't show the right respect for a Torah scholar. So there's a Jewish law. You need to tell them. You say, you should know. I'm a Talmud Chacham. I'm a Torah scholar. You need to have the right respect. And there is such a law. So sometimes a tzaddik is straight. He has to be zakus, but usually he has to be bent over even a higher level, because the greater you are, the higher level you have to be bent over. And sometimes you have to stand up for the respect that's necessary. As we mentioned this many times, HaShem tells us we have to show him honor and respect and glory and praise. And that's not for his sake. HaShem is humble. It's for our sake. For us to emulate him, we need to recognize his greatness. And the same is true by a Torah scholar. He has to advertise on Facebook or whatever. He has to let people know. Doesn't come from haughtiness. But unless you tell people that I have this ability, I have a certain element of greatness, I could say with pure humility, I have an element of greatness. Why? I need you to know that. Why? In order for you to learn from me. That's the concept of a tzaddik sometimes being straight as a king. A king can't act like he's a nothing. He's very humble. He's bent over, but he has to act like a king. And we are taught, true Torah scholars are called kings. They have to act with a level of dignity. That's a responsibility of a Torah scholar. I hope you all gained from today's lesson. Really insightful. We have to emulate Hashem's ways. All our ways have to be righteous, like Hashem's ways are righteous. Our ways are always the correct ways. They're not always kind. We have to learn sometimes not to be kind. Sometimes we have to draw a line. I'm sorry, what you're doing is wrong. This cannot continue. You have to be able to draw that line as Hashem does. And chassid b'chol ma'isa. But everything we do has to have kindness in it. Even when we're doing things of judgment, painful, we do it with kindness in it. It's not vengeful. It's not hurtful. It's with kindness. Chassid Hashem b'chol ma'isa. Have a wonderful day.